From 12 News, this is Newsmakers.
Welcome to the special edition of Newsmakers, a debate between the candidates for Congress in the 4th District of Massachusetts. Hello, everybody. I'm Tim White.
And I'm Ted Nesi. This seat opened up after Congressman Joe Kennedy decided to move on for an unsuccessful bid for U.S. Senate. The 4th Congressional District runs from Brookline and Newton down through the Attleboro's and Taunton into northern Fall River.
This debate is taking place in our 12 News studios. The candidates and moderators are all more than 6 feet apart. And the candidates are Democrat Jake Auchincloss and Republican Julie Hall.
Mr. Auchincloss was a captain in the U.S. Marine Corps, serving for 4 years beginning in 2010. He's been a member of Newton City Council since 2005 when he was first elected. Ms. Hall served in the Air Force for 3 decades, retiring as a colonel in 2009. She was elected to an at-large city council seat in Attleboro in 2015 and served 2 terms.
Now, each candidate will have an opportunity to give a 1-minute closing statement at the end of the debate. Mr. Auchincloss, Ms. Hall, as you know, there is no strict format. We're looking for an open and honest discussion of the issues. If you're not answering the question or you're taking too long, we will jump in. Let's begin. I'm going to start with you, Ms. Hall. On Thursday, the Massachusetts Department of Health elevated the majority of communities in Bristol County to high risk for COVID-19 transmission. I want to ask you about 2 big issues on the coronavirus. First, we're going to start with masks. You say you wear them, but where things stand right now, would you support or oppose a federal mask mandate? Why or why not?
You know, I do not support a federal mask mandate. I don't support the federal government mandating anything. I think that the states need to be making those decisions. And the reasons why is because each state is different and what's going on in each state is different. So they need to handle their, their
Do you feel with coronavirus cases on the rise right now, do you feel a confidence that each state across the country has been able to handle the situation appropriately? Cases are going up, they're not going down.
Right. And I think that, we have to determine between what considers in the definition of a case going up. That could be just that people are testing positive and being asymptomatic. And I think that discussion needs to happen. People need to continue to wear the mask, but the difficulty is it also is not just the mask, it's the hand washing and keeping the areas clean. That when you talk to public health, they will tell you all of those things need to happen in order for us to stay safe.
So would you mandate hand washing?
I would mandate hand washing, but as you can see, we've mandated all of that and people aren't following through appropriately. So I think we need to continue to definitely wear the mask and take the precautions that the public health has dictated to do.
Mr. Auchincloss, what about you? Would you support or oppose a federal mandate?
I think it's time to put science in the driver's seat in our response to this pandemic. The incompetence, the ignorance of this administration has cost 250,000 Americans their lives. It's cratered the economy. It's shuttered our schools. My opponent says that she would listen to Donald Trump over the scientists in her response to the pandemic. I strongly disagree. This president doesn't understand science. He can't even protect the White House from a coronavirus outbreak, much less the country.
Mr. Auchincloss, I know you don't like the Trump administration's handling of the coronavirus, but that wasn't the question. The question is, would you support or oppose a federal mask mandate?
We need to be using universal mask requirements, coronavirus contact tracing, testing, and targeted lockdowns to respond to this. We have seen how other developed economies across the world have responded. They've done so effectively. Look at New Zealand, look at Germany, look at Taiwan. If we had a competent federal administration, we would have the support that the states needed to respond to this effectively.
Yeah, I don't want to put words in your mouth. I just want to be clear. So you support a federal mask mandate? Was that your answer?
I think that, as Dr. Fauci has said, it's time to impose a federal mask mandate. That's right.
Okay, a couple more questions on this topic before we move on. I'll stick with you, Mr. Auchincloss. Right now, there are several vaccines that are in the final stages of testing. If a vaccine is approved by the FDA, will you take it? Yes or no?
Yes, I will.
How about you, Ms. Hall?
I would not. I don't take the influenza vaccine. I believe that our bodies, if you have a nice healthy body, you should be able to build up antibodies. I'd rather do it that way. However, I think there are people that really need to take this vaccine, and I would wait to see whether it's proven that it's going to work. I don't feel at this point in time that they have said that it's going to be proven to work.
Some people might find it troubling you're equating the flu to the coronavirus in that answer.
Yep.
How would you respond?
Sure. I've worked in healthcare for over 30 years. And so influenzas, that's what we call these. These are influenzas. This is what I would call a super flu. This is a very dangerous flu. It really is. But it is still a virus. And viruses, that's what they do. They come in our bodies, and our bodies are made to fight against those. We're having a very difficult time doing that, but our bodies are made to fight against those best we can.
Mr. Auchincloss, I'll give you 30 seconds.
250,000 Americans' bodies were not made to fight against it, and they're dead now because of our incompetent response to this pandemic. And frankly, I find it very concerning that my opponent appears to be an anti-vaxxer and appears to not take science seriously. Vaccine development and distribution is how we're going to get safely to the other side of this pandemic.
Ms. Hall, response?
Yes, I agree that there are some vaccines that we've had to use in the past, but this one, I'm waiting to see when this comes out. It is still in production. So if they can come out and say that they have absolutely done all the trials that they need to do, I think that's what people are worried about right now. They're worried about taking a vaccine too quickly when it hasn't had its full trials.
Well, on this topic, one quick final question before we get to Ted. If a parent refuses to let their child get immunized for the coronavirus when and if a vaccine comes out, hopefully, should the child be refused access to public schools? Mr. Auchincloss.
I think that we need further research and we need further guidance from public health officials on that question. There is a lot of research and development of vaccines ahead of us, but the standard needs to be that vaccines are the default, and that as a public health mandate, people need to be getting the vaccine so that we can safely reopen the economy.
Ms. Hall?
I listened to Shara Doran, who is an epidemiologist from Tufts, and she said that we were never supposed to be fighting the vaccine. We were supposed to be managing the vaccine, and there's more to public health than just fighting the vaccine.
You mean the virus?
Yes, excuse me, the virus.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep, no problem. But so the question
more,
is, should kids be refused access to public schools?
No, because I think they need to go back, and that's the point. Part of this is financial and mental health, too. Part of public health is all of those things. And I think keeping kids out of school, we got to get back to as normal as we possibly can. Yes, we have to do it safely, but we have to get back to as normal as we possibly can, because again, what we're seeing is other issues showing up, mental health issues. People want to get back to work. They feel better when they make money, and they can contribute to the government when they make money. They can contribute to the economy when they make money.
Okay, we're going to go to Ted.
I want to talk about the Supreme Court, and Mr. Auchincloss, I'll start with you. Many Democrats are angry that Republicans decided to fill the open seat on the Supreme Court with Judge Amy Coney Barrett, Justice now Amy Coney Barrett, so close to an election. And now there are calls to expand the court to counteract what has happened there. Would you vote to add justices to the Supreme Court, and if so, how many?
All options need to be on the table right now. The Republicans rammed through an unprecedented nomination this close to an election. It was a hypocritical act that has undermined Americans' confidence in the Supreme Court as an institution. We need to tackle the fundamental issues, though, that have so concerned Americans about this nomination process, and that is that the Affordable Care Act, women's reproductive rights, gun safety are now in jeopardy, and Congress and the Senate need to address those issues directly.
But, there are real concerns that you could have an escalation if seats were added to the Supreme Court. Then the Republicans could have even more seats the next time they're in control, or some other procedural change will be made. You're not ruling that out. It's a pretty radical step. It hasn't happened in 150 years.
I think all options need to be on the table. What I think is the core responsibility of Congress right now is to take these political hot potato issues like the ACA, like women's reproductive rights, like universal background checks, and stop letting the court be the final word on it, and instead address them directly in the political branch of government.
Ms. Halt, I want to ask you, Republicans famously decided not to hold hearings in 2016 when President Obama nominated Merrick Garland because it was an election year, but this election year they quickly confirmed Justice Barrett. Do you think they were right to refuse a hearing for Judge Garland back in 2016?
I'm probably going against my party's viewpoint here, but that's okay because I do have a thought process of my own. And I think that you should always let the process go the way it should go. Even when I was on the city council, I didn't like to have things held back. I always like to have a vote go on. I think that they did the right thing here because the Constitution says that you should go ahead and press on, and it's up to the Senate to have then delayed it if they wanted to delay it. That's the way the process works. To me, it's not any kind of, you could say undermining of any kind, but it did follow the process of the Constitution, and that's what we should be doing.
But you said in 2016 you think they should have had hearings? I do. You should have had hearings on Merrick Garland?
I do.
What do you think of the proposals from the Democrats to at least consider potentially adding justices to the Supreme Court?
I do not believe you should be adding justices to the Supreme Court. It's hard enough to make a decision with the people that you have. Again, I'll go back to my time on the city council. We had 11. It's difficult. The more people you add, the much more difficulty it is. You have enough to have opposing viewpoints. I think the most important thing that I find all throughout of what I'm finding here is balance.
Mr. Auchincloss, your response?
Well, again, when I look at the concerns around the Supreme Court right now, it comes down to issues that are core to Americans' values and priorities. Americans with pre-existing conditions are concerned that the ACA is going to be undermined. The Trump administration, Trump Republicans, and the Supreme Court look set to do that. Americans who are concerned about the safety of their communities are worried about gun safety legislation being further undermined. Women are rightfully concerned about their access to safe and legal abortions. These need to be priorities for a Biden administration and for a Democratic Congress and Senate next term.
Ms. Hall, one last question on this. You know, there is some hope among some conservatives that Roe versus Wade will be overturned now that there is a clear conservative majority. Do you hope that happens, or would you oppose that?
To be honest with you, I don't think that's I don't see that as even coming up. I truly do not.
You don't think there will be even a case in front of them on that?
I don't think that's going to come up. I really believe that is not going to come up in the Supreme Court.
Briefly, Mr. Auchincloss?
I've got to disagree with that. Numerous reproductive rights advocacy groups strongly disagree with that. Roe v. Wade is going to be contested and is going to be in jeopardy at some point under a 6-3 conservative majority. And it is long past time for Congress to pass a Roe Bill of Rights that provides all women in the United States access to safe and legal abortions. It is a human right. Women's health care is health care, and health care is women's health care.
Just 15 seconds, Ms. Hall, and then we'll move on to Tim, if you have a final thought on that.
Well, my thought is if it does come up, then I would choose that it would go back to the states and let the states determine how they would handle their particular. Again, as you can see, I have a theme here. I believe in the sovereignty of the states.
Briefly, Mr. Auchincloss.
Well, women in Mississippi and Arkansas and Texas are not going to do well under a states' rights approach because right now they're already being blocked from having access to safe and legal abortions. We need to take this to the national level. We need to guarantee women's reproductive rights. I'm going to be a strong champion for that issue in Congress.
All right, we're going to go to a rapid fire section now. We're looking for just 1 or 2 word answers here. Mr. Auchincloss, will you vote for or against question 2, which would switch Massachusetts' electoral system to ranked choice voting?
I'll vote in favor of ranked choice voting. I've been a strong and early supporter.
Ms. Hall?
I'll vote against it.
A through F, Ms. Hall, letter grade for Congressman Joe Kennedy for his job as U.S. Representative.
I think he's got an A.
You got an A?
Yep.
Mr. Auchincloss?
I would give him an A as well. I'm surprised to hear a Republican give
Well,
Democrat
Look,
an A.
we found common ground. How about that?
There you go.
Easy graders today.
Yeah, really.
Yeah.
Mr. Auchincloss, would you support or oppose legalized recreational marijuana at the federal level?
I think the federal government should legalize recreational marijuana, and that should be for the states to regulate.
Ms. Hall?
I agree. I think that they should make it, yes, please, legalize it at the federal level.
And
yes.
Ms. Hall, we'll stick with you here. Do you support or oppose abolishing the Electoral College?
I would not abolish the Electoral College. I think that's what allows us to have a fair and balanced election.
And Mr. Auchincloss?
I think it needs to be under consideration. We have had a number of presidential elections now where the popular majority has not been reflected in the winner. And we do need a bipartisan, thoughtful commission in this country about how our processes work to best reflect the will of the majority.
Ted?
One of the big debates in the southern part of the 4th District, which is the part that we cover here at 12 News, is the ongoing campaign by the Mashpee Wampanoag tribe to secure the right to the tribal land they need if they are to build the proposed casino they want to build in Taunton. And Ms. Hall, I'll start with you on this one. Last year, a bill was brought up for a vote to restore the tribe's land rights, and President Trump, leader of your party, of course, he tweeted, quote, "Republicans shouldn't vote for H.R. 312, a special interest casino bill backed by Elizabeth Pocahontas Warren. It is unfair and doesn't treat Native Americans equally." Do you agree or disagree with the president on the Mashpee tribal land issue?
You know what? I actually talked a lot with some of the folks that were against this. And I think that the tribes, and they do own a lot of land around here, they have the right to do with the land that they want to do with the land. And so I think I would support them on having a casino here. I know that's not the favorable, direction of my party and some of the people I know in the state of Massachusetts, but I would support them on that.
And support, so restoring the land rights
Yes.
they want with the interior. I won't get into it all.
Yes,
but the interior.
I got it. Yes, restoring the land, yes.
Mr. Auchincloss, Massachusetts Democrats have generally supported the efforts, and Ms. Hall, I should say here, to restore the tribe's land rights for this casino project. But as Ms. Hall alluded to, there are opponents in and around the area where this would be built, and they would be your constituents too if you're elected. Do you support allowing the tribe to build the casino? And if so, what do you say to those opponents in that part of in that part of the district?
I support the tribe's reclamation of its land rights, and I will be a strong ally for their economic development opportunities as a member of Congress. I do have concerns about casinos in general. However, I am someone who is committed to being a good listener and to bring people together to solve problems. This is a problem that I can help be a convener and a facilitator for, and I'm confident we can get to a good solution on it.
I want to talk about immigration. Ms. Hall, on your campaign website, you say, quote, barriers are put in place to secure our borders and protect our lands, end quote. But what about those already here? Mm-hmm. Would you support or oppose a pathway to citizenship for undocumented immigrants?
I do support a pathway to citizenship. I do support DACA, and I support, though, that when it's been extended, and I know it's been extended, but we need to come up with a time frame, and we have to then stick to that time frame. So I think we do need to have the pathway to citizenship, but there needs to be some very clear rules, and there needs to be a timeline, and we need to now stick to that timeline. That's what got us in trouble the last time.
And what timeline would you
I would say
support?
5 years.
5 years.
Yes.
Mr. Auchincloss, same question to you. Do you support or oppose a pathway to citizenship for undocumented immigrants?
I strongly support that. And we have even more work to do than that as a country. We're a nation of immigrants. We are made immeasurably richer, both socially, economically, and culturally by immigrants here in Massachusetts and in the country largely. We welcome those who are seeking refuge here. We welcome those who are trying to build a better life here. And along the long list of depredations and embarrassments of this administration is their treatment of immigrant families at the border, where they appear to have orphaned as many as 500 children at this point. This country needs to introspect and look hard at its actions over the last 4 years and make amends with the immigrant community.
A quick follow-up to both of you. I'll stick with you, Mr. Auchincloss. A lot of people are going to hear your answer there and Ms. Hall's answer, and that's going to rub them the wrong way, including people in your party who say, look, either I came to the country legally, or my grandparents or my parents came to the country legally and followed the rules, and they might not like to hear that the people who are already here that are undocumented, you support a pathway to citizenship. What do you say to them?
The people who are here undocumented are fellow Americans. These are people who are trying to build a better life for themselves and for their kids. They want to participate in full legal citizenship. They want to pay their taxes. They want to follow the rule of law. And they're looking for what everybody in America is looking for, is to have a stable family life and to have a good job. And we should welcome them. They make our country stronger.
All right, Ms. Hall, 30 seconds.
Yes. You know what? The reason why I say this is because when we conglomerate people, we put them in groups together, we have to ferret that out. So I think what we have to do is we have to determine among that group of undocumented immigrants who they are, really. Have they been here working? What have they been doing? Because I know that there's grandparents that have come over, and that's going to be difficult to send somebody's grandparents home. So we need to really look at that. We can't make sweeping statements about things without looking carefully. We have to have rules. We're going to have criteria. All that has to happen. That's why I don't say no right off the bat, because we have to look at things very, very carefully. We don't want anybody to get hurt by the decisions that we make.
Ted?
Talked about a lot of policy issues. I want to ask you both a little about politics. Mr. Auchincloss, I'll start with you on this. As you well know, you faced some strong opposition to your nomination for the 4th District Democratic nomination for this seat from many progressives who pointed out you were a registered Republican when you were working to help elect Charlie Baker, and they suggested you weren't far enough to the left for Massachusetts voters, and that wing of your party is growing in influence, it seems. Are you concerned about that? Do you think the Democratic Party is moving too far to the left?
Well, in 2014, like many residents of the Massachusetts 4th, I found myself to be an Obama-Baker voter. I saw in both President Obama and Governor Baker leaders who could bring people together to get things done, leaders who were interested in finding solutions and not just in rigid ideology. And I think Governor Baker has done a good job handling the COVID pandemic. I think progressives in the Democratic Party are going to see in me someone who represents their values and fights for their priorities. We are going to address longstanding inequality in our communities and racial justice. We are going to pass universal background checks and ensure gun safety in our communities. We are going to fight for women's reproductive rights. in the 117th Congress. They're going to find in me someone who represents their values and who comes to the 117th Congress ready to be a fighter for their priorities.
So you have no concern about the leftward drift we're seeing in your party?
I think talking about left, center, right is not actually addressing what voters in this district care about. What voters in this district care about is getting through the COVID pandemic and being able to safely reopen our economy. And that requires bringing people together of all persuasions. And that's been my style as a military officer. That's been my style in business, in local politics. Get people in a room together and solve problems together. Left, right, center, upside down, doesn't matter. Let's solve problems.
Ms. Hall, I'll turn to you. Look, barring a political earthquake, the 4th District will be won by Joe Biden in Tuesday's election. And therefore, to win, you'd almost certainly need some voters who are voting for Biden at the top of the ticket to switch parties and vote for you to send them to Congress.
Sure.
What's your message specifically to a Biden supporter, why they should split their ticket and vote for you, member of President Trump's party, and send you to Congress?
Sure. Well, the first thing I want to go back to this. We have a gentleman here that's been a Republican, a Democrat, and an independent in a very short period of time. And I know that's caused some consternation out in the public. They don't trust him, okay? And I hear this every time I go out, that people are going across ballot for me because they don't trust him. And, you know, as I said before, you did this to yourself. You know, changing a policy, a small policy is one thing, but changing your entire ideological ideas is a huge thing to do in a very, very short period of time. So, you know, I do want to point that out. The other thing is that, you know, people say to me, we may not like what you say all the time, but, you know, we know that you're telling the truth, and they trust me. And I think character is extremely important when you're going to vote for somebody. That, you know, I don't have to have all the answers all the time. I have to have the capacity to get those answers, which I do. I'm a colonel in the United States Air Force. I did very, very well. Obviously, I came from the bottom. I worked my way up the very bottom as an airman and as a woman. And I was challenged all the way along the line. And I did very well. That should tell you I'm good at what I do. And I'm going to bring that same passion and all those skills to the 4th Congressional District.
Well, look, it's a critique of you we've heard before, Mr. Auchincloss. I'd like you to respond.
Well, there is one area where I agree with my opponent in her recent statement, and that is in her words truth and character and their importance. And I find it disconcerting that someone could support Donald Trump for president while espousing truth and character as important principles. This is a president who has lied 23,000 times since taking office. This is a president who is credibly accused of sexual assault by dozens of women, who has mocked immigrants, who has mocked war heroes, who has mocked those with disabilities. This is a president who has no passing acquaintance with truth and who has no character. And anybody who goes to the ballot seeking those two virtues, I think, should be looking at Joe Biden for president.
I will let Ms. Hall respond in a second to that,
Thank
but I do want to. What to the idea that you are a political chameleon, that you've moved around in your party affiliation, then voters aren't sure what your true core beliefs are?
Well, I think I've been clear in addressing this. I've supported strongly Governor Patrick, President Obama, Hillary Clinton, Joe Biden, and I've also supported Charlie Baker. I see in him somebody who brings together people of both parties, who solves problems, and who has led ably during this pandemic. That does not alter in any way my core convictions and my priorities, which are to address longstanding inequalities in our communities and tackle racial injustice, to fight climate change and transition to a clean energy economy, to pass universal background checks and make our communities safer and more free from gun violence. These are convictions I have held since reaching political maturity, and they're convictions that voters can count on me to espouse.
Ms. Hall, just give you a final word on, there are voters uncomfortable with Donald Trump, and you are going to support him. What do you say to that?
Sure. Well, you know what? I'm not Donald Trump, and I say that all the time. Look at me. I'm not Donald Trump. I am here to campaign for Julie Hall, not for Donald Trump. He's out campaigning on his own, and I find it a little disconcerting that I'm not giving the opportunity to have my own thoughts. You know, I have 2 master's degrees. I had a great career. I'm a very intelligent woman. I make my own decisions. I use my rational thought. So people trust me. And I think it is very important. Integrity is probably the most important thing that you can have in your congressperson. So they will have that in this congresswoman.
All right, we have just 45 seconds before we get to closing statements. So very briefly, Mr. Auchincloss, I was just curious how you vote on question 1 on the Massachusetts ballot, which would require car manufacturers to allow vehicle owners to access their car's mechanical telematics data remotely through a remote application. Would you vote for or against question 1?
I'll be voting yes.
And Ms. Hall, how are you voting on that?
I'll be voting no.
You'll be voting no. And real quick, how about a fun last question? Your favorite Thanksgiving side dish, Mr. Auchincloss?
Stuffing.
Stuffing. Ms. Hall?
Mashed potatoes.
All right, good. All right, now each candidate has an opportunity for a 1-minute closing statement, the order of which was drawn randomly prior to the debate. First up, Mr. Auchincloss, your 60-second closing remarks.
Thank you. Well, thank you to Channel 12 for having me on. 2020 has been an incredibly hard year for many of us. Families are scared. Families have lost loved ones. Children are being denied access to their full educational opportunities. People are losing jobs. People are hurting. And yet our politics seems not able to rise to meet this moment. In fact, our politics seems to be getting worse just as the pandemic has been getting worse. And my pledge to the residents of the Massachusetts 4th is that you will have in me a member of Congress who is laser focused on addressing the pandemic by listening to science and putting science in the driver's seat so that we can safely reopen the economy and safely reopen our schools, and that you will find in me somebody who will engage productively with everybody, bring people together to solve problems, and represent the better part of what our politics can be.
All right, thank you, Mr. Auchincloss. Now, Ms. Hall, your 60-second closing remarks.
Okay, thank you. Well, you know what? I've been out on the trail and I've talked to people about this. Mr. Auchincloss comes from the same place that Joe Kennedy came from, very far north from here, in a very affluent community. I am from Walpole originally, and now I'm from Attleboro. I am a working class person. That's the way I grew up. My parents worked a couple of jobs to get us, to put food on our table and make sure that everything we had was taken care of. This is the kind of people that are down in the rest of the district. I mean, I can definitely be a congresswoman for all people, but we down here have not had representation for our concerns and our challenges for such a long time. I don't think we have ever had it. And to have a conservative voice for a change, boy, wouldn't that be something. So what I'm telling to you is, please, I am here to represent us. This is our seat. This is time for us to have representation once and for all. So please, vote for me, Julie Hall, and we will get our seat. Finally.
Thank you, Ms. Hall, and thank you to Mr. Auchincloss for agreeing to join us in this debate, and to everybody at home. Of course, November 3rd is Election Day, and 12 News will have you covered. And Ted, this is our final debate in the debate series.
That's right. If you're tuning in ahead of Election Day and you want to get up to speed on some of the other races, we had 3 Rhode Island debates heading into this one: Warwick Mayor, Cranston Mayor, and House District 15, also in Cranston, which is, of course, Rhode Island House Speaker Nicholas Mattiello's district, a hotly watched race. You can find all of those, as well as this entire debate, on WPRI.com.
And don't forget to sign up for our podcast so you can take those debates with you. You can do that through iTunes.
Lucky you.
I want to thank you for watching this week. For Ted Nisi, I'm Tim White. We'll see you next week on Newsmakers.